And I'm going to take a little bit of responsibility myself. I've been on this show for months here talking about how Donald Trump has been nice to me and implying that he was a good guy because he was nice to me when I was on a show, but I'm done with that myself. You know, we've spent the past 5 days listening to him excuse violence. We've listened to him tell people to punch somebody at his rallies, and to do that and then to deny that there's violence at his rallies, to pretend that this is not a problem, to pretend that he's not responsible for it, that's not just irresponsible, it's delusional. And so, you know, I'm kind of done with defending him myself, and I'm kind of ashamed that I've done it up until now.
Wow. Steve, I want your voice as well, since we're hearing from you. You know, if you want to respond to some of what Clay shared, and also your thoughts on what President Obama said.
I thought what happened Friday night in Chicago, Brooke, was shameful. It looked like the nationalists and the communists clashing in the streets of Berlin in the 1920s. And what happens when you have a government that has become corrupt and a lot of people feel failed by it, that it hasn't delivered on a lot of its promises, is it has a tendency. A group of people have a tendency to revert back to tribalism, to follow megalomaniacs who promise they have all the answers, whether it's hope and change or make America great again. And what Donald Trump is doing here, listen, we have seen all over the country, if you've been to conservative events all over the country, you have seen sort of this leftist mobocracy, like what we saw in Wisconsin with Scott Walker, follow conservatives and conservative events around. It is clear they think they have some sort of moral standing to shut down free speech or political dissent, and I find it shameful and un-American. But the response
Hold on a second, but let me make sure I'm hearing you correctly. You talk about hope and change. Are you blaming President Obama for that rally being shut down Friday night? Let's just be clear.
No, what I'm saying is Donald Trump is simply a reflection of the last megalomaniac with empty slogans that ran 8 years ago, and he's trying the exact same game plan. So instead of one group of potential victims out in the streets, now we're going to have another group of potential phony victims out in the streets.
There's a major difference. There's a major difference in running on.
That's what you saw on Friday night.
There's a big difference between running on hope and change and inspiring people in this country, which is what Obama did 8 years ago, and running on hate.
Those people, Clay, looked really inspired in the streets of Chicago. Those leftists on Friday night, they looked really inspired.
A lot of them were thugs.
They looked like the exact opposite of inspired.
But the anger that you saw in the streets is a reflection of the anger that's coming out of the inside of the walls of those rallies. The stuff that Donald Trump is talking about, the hate that he's in a way preaching, and the hate that's in those rooms, the only reason there's anger outside is because there are people in the streets who do believe in this country, who do believe in the hope and the change that Barack Obama talked about.
And by the way, let's be fair. I mean, there is a lot of anger in this country, and I think a lot of it is justified. A lot of it is economic based, and I think that the folks, it's not only Donald Trump who's really tapped into that. Bernie Sanders has as well. Van, right. I know you wanted to jump in.
Well, right. let me just say a few things. I want to acknowledge, I feel uncomfortable with the disruptions of the Donald Trump protests as they have developed. I also, though, remember when that Muslim woman went there silently, just wearing a shirt that said, "We are here in peace," and she stood up, and she was ejected so forcefully and subjected to so much vile vitriol. Even a silent witness at a Donald Trump rally can be met with violence. I think that's something I'm very concerned about. I also think it would be important for us to acknowledge that Donald Trump has so much opportunity to speak that some people feel like the fairness doctrine is out the window, and there's an attempt, possibly misguided, to try to impose a kind of almost a people's fairness doctrine to say, listen, you get to talk too much, what about the rest of us? I don't think it's being handled in the right way. I agree with you on that, sir. But I think to equate the kind of whipping up of violence that you saw from a Donald Trump with anything that President Obama has ever said, I just don't think it's fair, sir.
Steve, respond to that. Stephen and Adriana.
I would be happy to. I would love to respond to that. What Donald Trump is doing in response to this is despicable. It's unprofessional, it's unpresidential, it's why I'm not supporting him, it's why I'm #NeverTrump, and it's why I'm doing everything I possibly can to not have this guy be the Republican nominee, because the response to the failures of the Obama era is not white nationalism. That's not conservatism. I agree the behavior you're seeing in his rallies is reprehensible.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
Hold on a second. Let me finish and then you can finish. I watch CNN a lot. I watch CNN a lot. I think they're more than fair in the coverage they give to Donald Trump. So let's let another candidate's side speak for just a moment. What Trump is doing, the record speaks for itself. I'm going to pay for your legal battles. If you punch a guy, then I'm not the next day. That speaks for itself. But, Brooke, you know what also speaks for itself? The mobocracy of the radical left that you've seen in places like Wisconsin, that I see in almost every conservative event around the country I go to, that I've seen it Cruz events, where they stand up and think they're entitled to scream and shout you down. Now, the reaction you're getting from Trump and some of his minions in response to this is reprehensible. But the people on the other side that are helping to spark it aren't any more innocent than he is.
I hear you on both sides. Adriana, I do want to hear from you because you're the person who supports Trump. So many people have come forward and said, listen, why doesn't he, if he wants to be president, act presidential, why not tone down the temperature? Jake Tapper asked Mr. Trump that himself on Sunday, and he essentially was saying, you know, listen, all the other candidates are saying that it's violent. It's not violent. He's not acknowledging the injuries when he was talking to Wolf yesterday. How do you wrap your head around that?
Well, first off, I want to say that I've been to one of the Trump rallies with 8,000 people there, and there were no problems whatsoever. Donald Trump has had hundreds of rallies, and so to cherry pick, you know, 3 events where a mob shows up and tries to throw punches and fights and provoke violence, you're going to have a negative
it's a lot
response.
more than 3.
It's just the reality.
Let's just be accurate. It's more than 3.
Right. But the majority of his events have been peaceful. But I want to say this. I see an extreme double standard here. You know, the left, including Hillary Clinton, wants to attack Donald Trump for divisive rhetoric. Yet she called half this country her enemies during the first CNN debate with Anderson Cooper. They asked Hillary Clinton, who is your enemies? And she said the Republicans. That's half this nation. If that isn't partisan, insulting. Well, you know what? She also compared Republicans and pro-life Americans to terrorists last August. You know, that's despicable. That is insulting rhetoric. Yet you don't see, you know, you don't see thousands of Republican protesters showing up at her events and shutting them down because she called half this country terrorists because they don't support abortion. So Hillary Clinton knows how to dish it out, but she lives in a glass house, and a lot of Republicans are fed up with the double standards.
Let me go to Steve on. I want to let me move past this and get to tomorrow morning. When we wake up, a possibility is that Trump wins huge. He could take both Ohio, and he could take Florida. And when he does, and when he wakes up, do you think his focus is on Hillary Clinton and he moves straight forward to attacking her?
Well, I think obviously
tonight's going to go very well. Pardon me. I think tonight's going to go very well. I think tonight's going to go very well for Ted Cruz. I think when we wake up tomorrow, I think there's a better chance Trump will only win one state than he will win them all. I think that we'll likely have he'll have a delegate lead slightly larger than the one he has now. Marco Rubio will be effectively eliminated. Kasich will win his home state but be mathematically eliminated. And we're going to have a 2-man race. And we're going to have a race between what kind of party is the GOP going to be, a conservative party or a nationalist party, and there is no middle ground. Are we going to run on principle or are we going to run on division just like Obama did in 2008? And I think that's the debate we'll have between now and June the 7th when the primary calendar ends between Cruz and Trump.
Let me ask all of you to stand by. Looking ahead to tonight, Hillary Clinton moments ago saying Democrats need